When it comes to nuking, survivability, movement, and even fashion, NEZHA is definitely up there with some of the best warframes. Whether you want to delete an entire radius of 30 plus meters with the press of a couple buttons, tank an absurd amount of damage with damage redirection, zoom around, or just have peak fashion, NEZHA has you covered. And it's all on the same exact build. Buck here, and today let's go over the NEZHA Nuke build in Warframe. Kicking it off with NEZHA's passive and abilities, starting with his passive, which allows you to slide 60% faster and go 35% further. NEZHA's first ability is Firewalker, which sets your feet on fire and blazes enemies when you run past them. This ability is not needed for this build, so we're going to get that out of there and replace it with Temple's Pyrotechnics. This helmet will spawn fire pillars at the enemy's location, hitting them with heat stacks, which is crucial for nuking with this build. NEZHA's second ability is Blazing Chakram, where you will throw a flaming ring like a frisbee at enemies that will set them on fire, making them vulnerable to all damage sources. Flaming enemies will also drop health orbs on death, which pairs nicely with Equilibrium for energy management. The vulnerability Chakram grants scales directly with strength at almost 1-to-1. For example, if you have 100% strength, hitting an enemy will make them 100% vulnerable to all incoming damage. Warding Halo is NEZHA's third ability, and this is where his survivability comes into play. On paper, Warding Halo doesn't sound great, but it actually goes a lot deeper than its in-game description. Warding Halo acts as a damage redirection, not reduction. Warding Halo also grants immunities to status effects, including knockdown. The way Warding Halo works is that when you cast it, it will activate Warding Halo on the bottom right of your screen, and you will see its health pool at 0. During this time, NEZHA will be fully immune to all incoming damage for 3 seconds. All of the damage NEZHA takes during that 3-second window of immunity will be stored and used for Warding Halo's health pool that also has a multiplier that scales with strength and armor. Warding Halo has a base multiplier of 2.5, so let's say you cast Warding Halo and during your immunity phase you take a total of 20k damage. Warding Halo will take that 20k damage, times it by 2.5 at base, and that's your health pool for Warding Halo for that cast. While that health pool is up, Warding Halo cannot be recasted, and 90% of incoming damage will be redirected to Warding Halo, chipping away at its health pool. And NEZHA's final ability, but definitely not least, is Divine Spears, which by itself acts as a great CC with a large radius that does not require line of sight. Divine Spears will come out of the ground, impaling all enemies that do not have overguard or are not a boss, making them completely immobile. You can interact with the ability again to slam those enemies into the ground, or just letting the ability's duration run out will also slam them back onto the ground. On its own, Divine Spears is great for crowd control, but not great for damage, until it is combined with its Augment Divine Retribution. More on that mod when we get into the actual build. And with the passives and abilities out of the way, let's cover the ability percentage to shoot for, followed by the build itself and its arcanes. Ability distribution for NEZHA is a little wonky, as we want to absolutely tank our duration. My ability duration is sitting at 23%, and this is so that you don't have to interact with Divine Spears again after casting it. The enemies will slam back into the ground on their own after 2.7 seconds. Efficiency is sitting high medium at 150%, as this is an ability spam build and we want our abilities to cost as little energy as possible. Range you will want high to cover a large impale radius for Divine Spears, and lastly strength can remain normal as you do not need to crank it up at base for this build to function. We will also be ramping up strength in other ways. Now for the reason you're actually here, the actual build. Aura slot is going to be Corrosive Projection to reduce enemy armor by 18%. You could go Growing Power here as well. The only reason I am not using Brief Respite is it will not pair with one of the arcanes I am using. If you don't have that arcane or don't want to use it, you can use Brief Respite. Exilosat is going to be Controlled Slide for a 15% strength boost. This will also remove NEZHA's very slidey passive. If you enjoy his passive, you can use something else here. I will say that Primed Sure-Footed or Handspring are not needed, as NEZHA cannot be knocked down. We are going to make use of the augment for Nezha's 4th ability, Divine Retribution, as this is our nuke. Divine Retribution will spread status effects across all impaled enemies and take the remaining slash, toxin, and heat damage and scale their slam explosion by 1.5%, which scales with strength. We're going to be pairing that with Precision Intensify to boost Divine Retribution's multiplier to a ×3. Archon Vitality, so that Pyrotechnic's heat procs will apply twice per cast. Overextended and Stretch to get that range high. Equilibrium, which pairs perfectly with Blazing Chakram's health orb generation, and since we want to tank duration, Transient Fortitude, and this is very important, a rank 4 Fleeting Expertise. If you put on a max rank Fleeting Expertise, your duration will drop to 13%, only giving you a 1.5 second window to cast Spears, Chakram, and Pyro before the enemies are auto-slammed, which is too tight of a window if you ask me. A rank 4 Fleeting will give you a 23% duration, which is a 2.7 second window and much more manageable. Arcanes for this build is going to be Augmented for a up to 60% increase to our strength after 250 kills. This will buff the absorption multiplier of Warding Halo, the amount of pillars Pyro spawns per cast, and the vulnerability Blazing Chakram inflicts, and just the overall damage of Divine Retribution. Second arcane is going to be Arcane Circumvent, which is actually a little silly with Nezha. Arcane Circumvent will steal 50% of the armor of enemies when you roll through them, and it applies it to you. Armor that you steal will last for 15 seconds, and it includes Overguard. However, the Overguard does not last for 15 seconds, that will last until it is fully depleted. This arcane has no cooldown between rolls, and it is multiplicative with Corrosive Projection. Now, it does have some wonky effects where rolling through an enemy that has corrosive stacks will not steal their armor, but not really a giant issue on this build. We're mainly using this for free 10k Overguard when rolling through an overguarded enemy, and because we can't spear an overguarded enemy, this is a quick way to remove that. Warding Halo and Overguard also work extremely well together and make it basically like you can't die in most content outside of level cap. Archon Shards for this build are going to be 3 yellow shards for casting speed, as it does help with the ability spam on Nezha. Your other 2 shards are going to be blue for max energy to have you sitting at 375 total energy, which is more than enough when paired with Equilibrium and Blazing Chakram. You could also go with 2 purple Equilibrium shards and mod for Primed Flow instead of modding for Equilibrium. That's up to you, both work, and your focus school can be Zeneric or Materai. Now, Nezha can nuke just about anything with this build up to around level 5,000 enemies, except bosses and acolytes and things of that nature. So, to deal with that, we are bringing along the Laetum and its Incarnon. Rolling next to an acolyte to freeze them with melee Kareen, hitting them with Blazing Chakram, and then laying into them with Laetum Incarnon will destroy them in pretty much the blink of an eye. Your Incarnon path for Laetum is going to be Marksman's Hand, Lethal Rearmament, Elemental Excess, and Overwhelming Attrition. The build for Laetum is going to be a Corrosive and Heat setup, as this weapon comes with Viral already on it, Galvanized Diffusion, and Lethal Torrent for multi-shot, Hornet Strike for raw damage, as this will scale better than Galvanized Shot, Pistol Pestilence and Primed Convulsion to make Corrosive, Primed Target Cracker to up our crit damage multiplier, Magnetic Might for even more crit damage and straight magnetic damage, Primed Heated Charge on a separate line as Corrosive to have pure heat damage, and Exilus will be Steady Hands. Arcane for Laetum is going to be Secondary Enervate, which will allow us to yellow and orange crit before resetting back down to a very low crit chance to keep the 4th evolution of the Incarnon buff rolling. Primary weapon for this build is kind of preference, but I brought along the Cedo Prime to deal with non-boss or non-acolytes that can't be speared. The build for Cedo is going to be mainly Viral and Heat with Toxic Barrage and Primed Chilling Grasp to make Viral, Galvanized Savvy for more status chance and damage, Galvanized Hell for multi-shot, Magnetic Strafe for straight magnetic damage and rate of fire, Shotgun Elementalist and Primed Ravage for more elemental and crit damage, Incendiary Coat for straight heat damage, and Exilus can be either Fatal Acceleration or Galvanized Acceleration. Arcane for Cedo is going to be Primary Frostbite to massively increase multi-shot and crit damage when a cold status is applied, which Cedo Prime's Alt Fire will do for us. Strat for Cedo is to fire the Alt Fire at an enemy or a group of enemies, then just spray them down with the Auto Fire. Your melee is going to be Praetos for movement tech on the Incarnate Tree. You can also slot in the Arcane melee Kareen to freeze enemies you roll near, which will work great alongside Arcane Circumvent. Companion for this build is going to be the Nautilus for enemy grouping, which significantly helps with the damage scaling of our Divine Spears. You will want at least Cordon and Manifold Bond slotted to make the best of this companion's ability. And we will be modding the Verglas for viral and heat damage, since the more toxin and heat stacks we have on enemies, the more damage our Divine Spears will do. Play loop for Nezha will be to maintain a 100% uptime on your Warding Halo. The best way to get a large amount of Warding Halo health pool would be to cast it in front of a large amount of enemies and let them shoot you during your 3-second immunity phase after casting it. Roll through overguarded enemies to steal their overguard, cast Divine Spears to impale everything within a 32-meter radius, even if you cannot see them. Cast Pyrotechnics on at least one speared enemy. This will spread those heat stacks to every single impaled enemy, allowing you to hit all of them for millions of damage. And every once in a while, hit impaled enemies with Blazing Chakram to generate health orbs for energy management. As always, this video will be timestamped if you feel like you missed something or need to jump around. If you liked this video, don't forget to hit that thumbs up, subscribe, and turn those notifications on. See you next time.